Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jenn, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions how we overcome challenges and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in. Hello, my guest today is Filipina, Manila-based Denise de Castro, the principal architect of Deca Design Collaborative. Hi, Denise, and welcome to Curito Connects.
Hi, Jen. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. So before I begin introducing Denise, I must share this side story with everyone on how we met. So we met back in 2018 on a trip to Surigao, well known for those who surf. So Cloud 9 is a very famous surfing spot. And Denise and I met at the airport, and she saved my friends and I from being stuck on the island without money and a roof over our heads after our flight got canceled due to a storm. A fellow international school graduate from ISM, so International School in Manila, we quickly clicked with our experiences at the airport. I think I literally went up to you and said, just introduced myself and kind of talked about like, what do we do? We're all stranded here. And so fast forward to today, we managed to keep in touch since and also through the pandemic. And every time we catch up, we just spend hours chatting. And so I'm so excited to have you on here. And I think it's a very special opportunity for those tuning in for Denise to talk about design with purpose, where she feels so strongly about how design can improve and impact our life experiences, and why she chose to transition from a designer with a business background to an entrepreneur with a design business and everything in between. So without further ado, Denise, let me have you start off by introducing yourself to our listeners today. And we can go, from your beginnings. And you can kind of go way back and introduce yourself to those who don't know you. And, how did you get to where you are today in Manila, doing Deca Design Collaborative?
Well, yeah, Jen, it's I guess recently someone told me that everyone actually should write a biography. My friend in Singapore that we were just talking about, so she wrote a book and she said, yeah, it's really important to just put down on paper what's happened to you in your life. And I did this recently for another talk that I gave, and it really showed me that although my path wasn't deliberate or planned or set with goals, it led me to where I am today. And it's a place that I am happy to be in because it's something that is only unique to the journey that I've had, right? So, for example, let's start with the ending point, right? So right now, I'm running a multidisciplinary design firm here in Manila, with projects all over the Philippines. And we've grown that for over 12 to 13 years about, right? So our projects range from residential projects to hospitality projects, and then sort of everything in between as well. And from the north of the Philippines in Luzon all the way to the south of the Philippines in Mindanao. And that has brought me to really experience the Philippines in a different way, and have an appreciation for what's happening as the country is developing, right? Because most people are still very Manila centric, or in any country, um, the energy and the interesting things that are happening are usually in the capital cities. But being able to contribute to what's happening in other parts of the country is also part of why I'm really excited about designing with purpose, because I found that what our purpose is really to help people create these dream projects in unique locations, and to give them success in their lives and success in their business, um, and in what they've intended to set out with these design projects. And ultimately, it also contributes to nation building, right? I find that what we're doing, especially in the hospitality sector and now in the institutional sector, by creating these projects, it's helping generate income, generate also interest in these locations, which will then grow the economy in ways that these areas might not have seen before, right? So I feel like the my purpose and now the purpose of our projects are sort of tying in together quite
Mm.
well. Yeah, if that makes sense. And how we got here was that um, because we were doing many kinds of projects and a lot were in hospitality, working with brands and really catering to designing guest experiences and defining what that guest journey is, really told me, okay, we need to focus on experience and what is the purpose, brand purpose in the case of the hospitality projects. How do you tie those together? And we started applying that strategy and mindset to residential projects and other projects that we did. And it really, 'cause the interest for me in looking at human experiences comes from even when I was back in grad school and I worked for a while at IDO, a company based in San Francisco but has offices all over the world. And I worked in their environments group. And for me, it was a really eye opener because I was coming from a um, very traditional but global still education at Harvard Graduate School of Design. We're working with architects and designers from all over the world who are our professors, with students also from all over the world. But it was a very traditional kind of design education. Um, Very much focused on the identity of the architect and the cult of the architect. While working in IDO, it's like all of that veneer is removed, and you're really looking at just people and how they experience the world as a source of inspiration for design and innovation. So
Mm.
it becomes like egoless and about people and what you can do for people by studying how they interact, how they what they do and what they don't do, right? So it's kind of all tying in together. Um,
Mm.
so using that, yeah, using my education plus the experiences that I've had at work, and then the projects that we've been able to work on are now leading us to our trajectory. That was a
That's
long answer.
wow. Not really. That was you were just setting the stage here for understanding what you guys are doing and how your education experience built up to this. But I'm gonna rewind you and take you further back
Okay.
before your studies, before you chose this path. So
Yeah.
my question here is born and raised in Manila, like were you were raised in the Philippines, right? And so which how did you come across design? Were you as a young kid, was that always something you were like you like doing? You were always
I
doodling,
know, right?
and
I,
from there, how did you choose to go into that path? Or and you mentioned earlier, design business. We talked about design business versus entrepreneurial design business. So how did you go from a more business perspective to going like, well, actually, I want to, you know, start my own firm? Sorry, I'm also throwing a mouthful of questions at you, and I know you're taking notes here. But I think just, I guess my question is, could you lay out the foundation? Who Denise is, and how did
yeah,
she get from her early days to here, and and then
yeah.
I'll chip in my other question when you when you introduce that to us.
Well, yeah, going back. So yes, I was raised here, but actually born in San Francisco, and was, like you mentioned, in the international school system all throughout. So the beauty of that education is that you're exposed to so many different extracurricular activities at a young age, and I always gravitated towards the arts, not music though, just arts. right? And so much so that, as you know, like in international school in Asia, we have IASIS, right? IASIS.
Yes. Did you do
So
IAS's art?
I did IASIS art. So it was already at my very foundations. I'd been going to drawing and painting classes ever since I was young. um, and then going into university, applying to colleges. When I was looking, I really wanted to go to a liberal arts college because I still wasn't sure of what I was doing, because I did enjoy the arts, but I had older cousins who were doctors. So I still was, do I do a pre med path, or somehow I find a way to use this creative, um, energy that I have been building all these years. So when I went to college, I went to Wellesley College, and I think that's also, we also had a shared connection there. Um, that it was a good choice for me, because if I wanted to do medical classes or pre med classes, I could do them there, but also take it up at MIT, which is a cross registration program with Wellesley. So I was doing that my first year, doing some taking biology and chemistry classes, but at the same time doing art history classes and architecture classes at MIT. So I was able to really maximize that cross registration, having a technical education as well as the liberal arts. And the more and more I learned about architectural history, architecture, it felt like the perfect intersection of the creative and the research mind that I have, and made it such an interesting profession to be in, right?
Mm.
So it really started from there. So even while at Wellesley, well, once I discovered that I really enjoyed this, my junior year abroad, I did Syracuse University had a program in Florence, in Italy, and I did like was a Syracuse actually has a 5 year architecture program, which is a professional program. So they had a program. Part of their program was over there. So I've got exposed to more design mixed with architectural history and art history, which is fantastic in Italy, because you could go really from Venice down to Rome and Naples and experience all of that. So that was already the foundation. And every semester, every summer, that I had in the U.S. Even in college, I was already doing internships with local Boston firms, and getting exposure. So I said, okay, this is really something that I want to do.
Mm.
Um, and after Wellesley, well, actually, while at Wellesley, I said, okay, I think I need to get a professional degree, because my degree at Wellesley was a architecture major, but it wasn't a professional one with a poli sci minor. So for me to practice, I needed to get a master's degree. So my senior year at Wellesley, I already applied for graduate school, all in the U.S. Right, so that was I got in, and then I was too tired after my first year because it was so intense. And I took a break, got more work experience after that year, and gave me some roots here in Manila. So by roots, I mean I was able to work with a really up and coming architect here who had graduated from Pratt in New York, and I worked with them for that year that I took off from Harvard GSD. After that, I finished my degree, um, which actually at Harvard was like 3.5 years. So it was like almost doing another bachelor's. It's not like a master's in business, which is like 2 years. And after that, I was tired again. So I came back to Manila, just for a break, um, trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I ended up working for that same architect again. And he asked me to work for him just for 6 months on a few projects, but that ended up becoming 4 years. Um,
Wow.
so it was unintentional. I think if I didn't come home, I might still be in the U.S. or maybe might have even moved to Europe or even Japan. But it brought me back here, and I was also very thankful because a few years after when I moved back, it was the financial crisis in the US, which hit
Mm.
the housing market. And a lot of my architect friends from grad school were, were laid off from their jobs at big firms, and they were back to zero, working on kitchen renovations, bathroom renovations. So I was happy to be here and doing what I was doing.
Mm.
So yeah, and that brought me to starting with one project, freelancing, and then two, and then realizing I was getting more projects and I needed to hire staff,
Wow.
right? And then I need to hire staff and get an office. Because then from being a one woman show, doing all the design, all the drawings, all the 3D modeling, all of those things. Then going to site, going to suppliers, right? Once it became more than one project, you know, I realized I needed help. So this
Yeah.
leads me to the next question that you had. So I was growing the business, growing projects, growing staff, and things are going well because there's just an upward trajectory. But um, having just learned now all these things now in business is that at a certain point you really plateau, right? And I was reaching that plateau and hitting it quite hard. And it's okay, what's happening? And then that's when I realized, wait, I need to be more serious about the business and understand how to run a business and not just be an architect with or designer with a design business, but like I said to you in my email, to be really become an entrepreneur with a design business. So um, being sort of embracing that new role. I mean, I've been embracing it for a few years, right? Maybe about four years. I'm still struggling with it because it doesn't come naturally to me. And this past 2 years in the pandemic have helped me a lot because I've met coaches, right? Coaches that have just basically shown me a new direction of how to evolve as an entrepreneur. So that's where I am now, and I can talk about that
Mm.
a little bit
Yeah.
if you have more questions.
Of
Yeah,
course, we have time. I'm not wrapping up just yet. We'll come back to that because I think that's it sounded like this transition to becoming, more entrepreneurial and the coaches you've encountered have been really impactful for you. It's almost like that missing link that you had. But I wanted to go back a little bit again and ask you, um, because we're Asians and we grew up in Asian households. I'm just curious that during your path, right? As you like you mentioned earlier, when you were a young kid, you loved the arts and you really thrived in the arts. And then when you went to school, even you mentioned earlier, you said, "Oh, I was thinking, a lot of my cousins are all doctors. Should I do pre-med?" So I wanted to ask, for you at the time, uh, was it something that your parents were very supportive of, or did you also feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do the arts because how am I going to make a career out of this? you know so I wanted to open that dialogue to see, for you personally, was that something where you felt encouraged by your family and the environment you were in, that like, oh yeah, she's such a good artist, she's going to thrive as an artist, and was that something you wanted to do? Did you want to be like Denise de Castro, artist, like whatever your
yeah.
medium was? I'm not, whether it was painting or sculpture or photography. um and then that other side of your psyche telling you like, no, 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 you need to do something that's more of a profession, because art isn't a
Yeah.
profession. And I'm sure many people listening to the episode probably can relate to this storyline, right? Because it's kind of like, you want to do art, like, how are you going to feed yourself? How is that going to be a career? So I wanted to to ask that and open the floor for that conversation.
There is definitely that familiar pressure growing up in an Asian household, because actually my family, my dad's family, my mom's family actually are entrepreneurial, and for them it was too much of a roller coaster, right? Um, too dependent on outside forces. So they said you should just have a profession, right? That's what they told us always growing up. So they told that to my cousins, my older cousins, and that's what they did. My older cousins started becoming doctors. But for me, it was a combination because there was that pressure, but also I always enjoyed the sciences. Like I really love biology, I really love chemistry, as much as I love the arts, but I never wanted to be an artist, right? I
Mm,
realized I didn't have the temperament to be an artist. I liked research. I liked facts, right? So that's why architecture was really such a intersection of both,
yeah.
right? It satisfies my left and right brain, and I think once I discovered it, and also that trip to Italy actually was an aha moment, because for me, when I realized that it wasn't just a profession but it was a way of seeing the world, right? I feel that as a designer you see things differently,
Mm,
right? You see, not just see, but you experience and touch, and you're more aware of details that I realize being with people who are not designers, um, they're not aware of these things. Not that it's a bad thing, but I feel that we see the world differently, right?
mm,
And we look at things with that um, lens, that designer's lens, and I think there's an appreciation um, for our environment that's unique to being a designer, and I really love going through the world and experiencing it with this point of view. My friends and my husband and my family actually, they find it hilarious sometimes. Like, okay, there she goes again. Like, I'm gonna go like into like this corner of this of a plaza, or to just to look at something, or I'll touch all these different surfaces, and I feel like it's just more tactile, right? I'm even very sensitive to smell and how it plays into the music of a space, right? So my senses are always hyper aware wherever I am. Um, and yeah, it's just given me a way of seeing the world, which is fun.
mm.
So,
I'm sure your family appreciates the uniqueness you add to their life.
well, I curate our trips, right? For me to see, obviously, beautiful buildings, beautiful spaces, and there's so much to see, but not even all beautiful, but just historical or unique things. So that's what I seek out.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
I think that's a
so for
really interesting
you,
thing.
that process of, becoming an architect and committing your time and energy into that path, like your family was quite supportive of that as well, it sounds like you didn't have
Well,
those like arguments where it's like, what are you doing with an architectural degree?
well, at first they thought like, well, it's a profession, so they liked it, right?
Mm,
So it's a profession. It has a license. But yes, and I think many people who are in the creative field know that whether you're artist or in an artistic, field, you just put so many hours, right? Because it's about creation. It's not just about checking boxes that some things are done. And there's a perfectionist aspect to what we do. So we always feel that things could be better. But that's also something I enjoy, because we're just always optimistic. We always think that there's ways to make things better, and we're always looking for avenues to do that up to the very last minute, up to where we can't anymore. Or even when it's
Mm.
done, we're always like, okay, it's done, but how could we have done it better? And
Yeah.
how could and it's true because that's how we approach projects, because we learn from learn from that, and then when we go into the next project, okay, we can make it better this way,
Mm. Do you
right? So,
think, yeah.
but yeah, if I had known that, I just wish I had maybe had more business training before, right? I feel that I've
Mm.
right now where I am, is that I feel like I've built a very good reputation, a good name for me and my firm, and but it's not equating financially, right? So I feel that someone who's worked in another profession as long as I have would have already 10 times, right? Or created so much more financial value, right?
Mm.
While I feel that I feel very much still like a startup,
Wow.
even after this many years. But it's because I haven't been working on the business, right? This is what all my coaches
Mm.
say. I've been working in the business, but you really to grow, you need to work on the business and have that time to do that.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's where I am.
You totally just did the segue for me because I was going to come back to this topic, and it's very clear that it's so close to your heart right now in terms of this.
Yeah.
When we talk about challenge or impactful moment, that this awareness of business versus, like, yeah, like you said earlier, just being part of the business, but or being running the business. And so maybe you can kind of illustrate a little bit for you, what are some of the difficult difficulties that you've encountered? And then um for me, I'm also curious, like, how did you seek out your coaches that you've been working with over the last few years during the pandemic? Because with Curito Connects and a lot of the content and guests who come on, there is a lot of talks about, coaches, life coaches, career coaches, wellness coaches. So I think that's also interesting to share, like someone like you're seeking a career coach, or, versus like a wellness coach. And how has that process thus far, because you're still on it, how has that also changed you as an individual and the
Mhm.
perspective you have for yourself, but also showing up for, for DDC, for your staff, for your clients, and so forth.
Yeah. Well, I think what's always kept me going, aside from just being having grit, is learning, is having a learning mindset. And although I was always getting frustrated, it's like, why isn't the business growing? Why isn't it growing? It's like I always sought out to learn, and with the internet and everything, there's so many resources out there that I would just read and research and get all these books about business and about marketing, about you know um, finance. So I was doing that, um, but there was really a general feeling of overwhelm of running the day to day of the business and trying to learn business at the same time. So this feeling of overwhelm was really persistent for years, and I was so tired. It's like, oh, I was doing so many things, always catching up to meet deadlines, but just I feel like I was always catching up in life, right? Um, Always just making it photo finishing to things, and just tired. And then in 2021, right, the end of 2021, I got a message from a friend of mine, that was passed on to her, for someone that was wanting to possible people interview people about a course that she was designing, right? So she was designing a life design workshop. I was like, oh, this sounds fantastic. I love design, and I would love to know how to design your life, right? It's like if I could do this for myself. So I did an interview with her, and her name is Eileen Wan. And actually, you should interview her, Jen. She is
Okay.
amazing, right? She really is super inspiring. So Eileen interviewed me at end of 2021, and she is a member of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. And she had run a very successful business, which she grew from the ground up. Um, and by the time I met her, though, that she was been stranded in Vancouver throughout the pandemic, and she decided to stay there and was sort of building a new life because although she was very successful, the pandemic forced her business to close, and she was now bankrupt. Essentially, I mean, she had no longer had her business because it was mall based, retail based, and for 2 years she really had no sales. So she was starting from scratch, and so she thought that by doing this research, she could create her new life and her new direction, because she was always so good at coaching. So she was my first coach, and she then invited me to join the workshop that she eventually designed with women, mostly women, that she had talked to in that interview process and that she had curated as well, um, so that she could like beta test her workshop. So we did this for 6 weeks, early 2021, and we were different ages from like mid 30s to I think the oldest one was in their 60s. So a very big gap, different seasons of life, but the process of that she took us through and giving us an opportunity to be vulnerable to these strangers. So some were strangers, some were friends, but um, it just allowed us to um, be as the most honest I think many of us had ever had been. And in the end, she was coaching us, but we were also coaching each other. So
Mm.
I think the biggest learning there for me was really community, but also coaching, right? The coaching of a coach, but coaching from others. So that year, I started trying to figure out what else to do. Like, so um, I got a Spanish coach, I got a tennis coach. um, and then because of this workshop, one of my newfound friends and accountability partner. She put us in groups that we could be accountable for our goals. Introduced me to EO Accelerator, which is the Entrepreneurs Organizations Accelerator Program, which is meant for entrepreneurs um, to join a 2 year program so that they can scale up their business to reach the minimum level to become an EO member, which is revenues of $1 million. So I joined that program in July last year, and it's really, really, really helped so much because I'm talking to people that I have a new community of people that are in the same place, as me,
Mhm.
different ages, different businesses, but we're all in that place where we want to grow. We all have the same learning mindset, and it's a great community. So we have coaches because of this program. I've made new friends, and I have a new set of people that I can call and ask questions. So the difference now, I think, is that because I have tools and community, I feel that it's finally I think I can break that plateau. Right. So
Mm.
that's where I am now.
Yeah. So you have a community in which there is exchange and empowerment for one another to excel in the place they're at because everyone
Yeah.
brings in different things. So where you feel
Yes.
stuck sometimes with the numbering or how to structure your particular business, there's other people who can assist you in that way.
exactly. I might have a lot of friends, but I can't sit down with them and just talk business for like, you know, like 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
Because there might be a different place in their business,
Yeah.
right? They might not have the same struggles, but at least in this group, everyone's learning the same things, going through the same experience, and everyone wants to help also,
Mm, 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 mm.
right?
Yeah, that's really cool. So, do you feel like you're post pandemic? Now we're kind of post pandemic, and with your new integration with the coaching and being part of the EO accelerator, that you feel more confident in pushing GDC forward.
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, every time I learn something, I try to implement right away, and I think my team has also seen the difference, like the words I'm using, the ways I'm structuring our meetings, the ways that I'm giving them structure,
Hmm.
and trying to integrate process, and um, giving them these tools that are also not in an overwhelming way, right? So
Yeah,
um, I want to make sure that they're part of it from the beginning, so
yeah,
that they also own it,
yeah,
right, and have accountability.
yeah, which is
So I'm
important.
excited. I'm super excited. Like it's
Yeah.
I'm tired. I'm still tired, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm still tired, but the feeling of overwhelm is different, right?
Yeah, it's like
It's like I don't.
it's not a burden, it's you feel like it's worth it. Like you feel like it's
Yeah.
worth it because you're empowering those who are working with you, and you're turning what your clients want into amazing work, and you feel like you're making changes. I do want to also ask you, and we didn't talk about this earlier, and you did brush upon the fact that the reason why you ended up back in Manila, obviously during the 2008 financial crisis, and your opportunity to work with this architect back in the Philippines. Uh, did you find it difficult in the beginning when you moved back to transition into the environment you're in terms of, client facing, how things are done in the Philippines compared to what you learned in a US educational system in this field? Um, and so it sounded like this architect that you worked with for, you said originally supposed to be 4 months turned into 4 years, what also played a very significant role in your path. Right. It sounds like he was like your mentor and
Yes. Yeah.
showed you the ropes, and so we actually didn't mention his name. What's his name?
Oh yeah. His name is Ed Calma, right? So
Mm,
Ed Calma, he's yeah, now of course he's a friend and a colleague, right? And he very much appreciated my education, and so he actually sought me out. I didn't look for him, right?
mm,
He's the one who called me. He's like, "Hey, I heard you're in town, right? Can you please work for me?" So work on these projects. And what I missed, I'll go there first. What I miss is I miss actually community also, because I was coming from a great community um, of friends and colleagues at a grad school that um, were just so passionate about design, and I didn't see that with the people I was working with. So that was one frustration. Although they were talented, but the passion wasn't the same, and then the resources again wasn't the same. But the flip side of that is because you don't have resources as much as you would have in another country, you become more resourceful, right? And you find interesting ways to solve the same problems. So yeah, that then exposed me to meeting a lot of people. And that time I was working with him. He gave me an opportunity to work on a Philippine pavilion at the World Expo in Japan. So I was the lead designer on that, and got to meet people in government, got to work with Japanese architects because it was in Aichi in Japan. It exposed me to a lot of the Philippines as well, because I was working with so many suppliers everywhere. Um, so I think it was a good thing. It was definitely there was something I thought that was lacking, but it made up for itself
Yeah.
eventually. Yeah.
So much alignment there.
I know. And another benefit for me was um yeah, it made me want to explore what what is possible here, right?
Mm.
And people, I realize, because are also just as willing to experiment, because you don't have things ready made. You don't things come off the shelf like you would have in the US or in Europe, right? You have to like put things together. You have to, you know, figure out how to make things more than you would traditionally, because you can just open a catalog, and order it. Yeah. So yeah, we had to figure out how to put things together and be more creative in solving problems that way. I mean, now it's different. I feel like there's so many things from Europe now. I mean, even here, so many things from China, from Japan. So it's definitely changed a lot. So in the past, decade.
Yeah, very quickly, huh? But it's almost like now that you've seen it all, it's like you also, and we've talked about this before in our casual conversations, how to preserve Filipino design and Filipino arts and crafts. Um, Amidst the mix between the ready to made from all over the world, but then like not losing the identity of Filipina like art and all that.
Yeah.
So it's like you're quite integral in trying to maintain all that, like the glue.
Yeah, and I why one thing that is so challenging but fun is really how to use these traditions and techniques and artisans to modernize and make it more contemporary.
Yeah,
That it appeals to that not just Filipino sensibility, but a global sensibility.
yeah,
So um, there's definitely ways to update things and make it fresher. And that's where the fun part, that's why we love design, right? So you're taking all these things that might have looked like that in 1980, but if you change the color, change the way it's used, it might be the same thing, but now it works for 2023 or 2024.
yeah,
Right. So that's fun. I
totally.
mean, and that's, I think, I was in a conference a few weeks ago, like in Vietnam, and there were these designers, Americans, right, who were there. And there was a supplier showing them all these natural materials. And they were just like, oh my God, ooh, they were doing that. I was like, oh, wait, we have that all in the Philippines. Right. But for them, it's so amazing and exotic.
Yeah,
But we have that here, so it's really trying to always use what we can.
right. And it's also the whole trend with being environmentally friendly, sustainable. That's the big thing now going forward with global warming and climate change. So, and a lot of that exists in island countries like Taiwan and the
Mm-hmm.
Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
So totally agree. I wanted to ask also, and we have a few more minutes left here, but I also wanted to ask what what is your decade goal here? When you think like, where is DDC? What is Denise
Yeah,
doing in 10 years? Are you taking on global projects beyond the Philippines? Are you showcasing Philippines to the world?
yeah. No, I've been thinking about this actually quite a lot because of this coach
Okay.
of mine, right? Like, what is that 10-year goal? I've never actually done this, right? I never had these goals before, but um, sort of taking what we do as a practice and how to be more impactful, I think, is the goal. And recently I've been reading more about regenerative design and how that can be applied in a way that is interesting and not something that because I've seen it applied in some places where it's very um, how would you say it? It's maybe too hokey,
Hmm.
for better, with lack of a better word, but I feel that you can apply it how to use it at a scale, right? How to apply that thinking, so that it can be scaled and have more impact. So it's really taking the mentality of sustainability of how do you do less bad, and taking the approach of how to do more good.
Mm.
So I think it's trying to use design in ways of beyond design, like how design can impact community, how it can impact like food generation, how it can impact um, economy. So really looking at the context of what we're doing and finding ways of how to have our design ripple effects. But the difficult side here is like how do you measure? How do you measure? How can we say we do this? And yeah, that's I think one of the things when I have more time to work on the business is really develop and research. Through my like I have some contacts and friends who are doing this kind of work already, in Canada and in the U.S. So there is that approach in those countries, but here like it's not done yet. And as you said, like in Asia, we really are the most severely affected by climate change, right? We will see sea levels rising within our lifetime. um, the Philippines is on the top for um, being affected by natural disasters, so resiliency is so important to design here. um, so I think that's I want to champion not just sustainable design, but how can we use regenerative principles to
Mm.
give more to people, to communities, at different scales. So
Yeah.
it's not fair also to design just for a certain, yeah, exactly.
The
I was
high.
actually the high end, right? Because I think everyone should have good design, right? And
Yeah.
everyone, it should be democratic.
Yeah.
So how
Because
can we
it's a
apply that?
quality of life. Quality of life.
It's quality of life, using design to improve your quality of life, to improve your well-being, improve your health, right? And to enjoy community and family. um, and I think design is a really important part to play in that. And how can we do that, but how can we have it measured? I think being able to measure something
Mm.
um, will help, because then I can really walk the talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You can talk a lot.
Totally.
It can sound amazing, but if you can't actually quantify it or measure it, um, how can you really say it gives value?
That goes in line with your whole. I think you just kind of pitched your new business model, actually.
Did I?
While you were just saying that, I was thinking in my head, I was like, oh, Denise, actually, your 10-year goal could be like, you're really integrating the regenerative design with architectural design. And eventually, as you start building these projects and you can quantify it, like you said, then you'll have like this whole SOP system down where then,
Oh wow.
other people
Yeah.
would be like, oh, that is a very cool model. And they kind of figured it out and they worked it out. We would love to apply that within our community in other parts of the world, right?
Wow,
Yeah.
Jen. There you go. Well, the other thing I forgot to mention is that although yes, I'm an architect, although we do architecture, one of the things I've always found interesting and why we do it, we also do our master planning and interior design and even furniture design. I think many people, especially here in the Philippines, I don't know if it's the same in Taiwan, but people really like to clear, um, have very distinct titles. Like you're an architect, you're an architect. You're an interior designer, you're an interior designer. You're this, you're that. But I feel that very strongly that um, design really should scale, like I mentioned earlier, right? The concept and experience should be continuous from the macro to the micro and vice versa,
Mm,
right? From the micro to the macro.
Yeah.
And I've always encouraged my team that we work always together, and that's why I renamed the firm Design Collaborative, because we really collaborate across scales, across disciplines, and that boundary between identities of titles really disappears.
Yeah.
And
I love that because an example I would use to piggyback off of what you're saying is when architects design a beautiful architectural building, but it's like not functional.
oh yeah,
or like a interior designer designs the interior in a very photogenic way, but it's like not practical for living, right? You're like,
there
where are
you
my
go.
sockets for the kitchen? Like where are my like handles to hang the towels? Like, right. So it's like, it's kind of going back to, I guess, for you at your IDEO days when you were working there, like the UX UI design, right?
Yes,
Because
yeah,
at the end of the day, it's the human, the us, who are walking the streets, opening the doors, your habits. Like, where do you
yes,
hang your jackets? Where do you put your shoes? How do you like to clean your space? Is
yeah,
it easy to clean? Or is it like, damn, these corners, like how do I,
yeah,
how do I get into the materials you pick, right? These are all very, very important things that, if, like, to your point, if you just kind of label yourself as, oh, I only do interior design, and you don't think about all those other things, or you create
exactly.
products that just look pretty, but you're like, this coffee mug, it looks beautiful, but it's like, it doesn't work very well. It's not,
Right.
so I
But
appreciate what you've built, like what you're really trying to educate more people, in the industry, and more awareness for this. Yeah.
and this is where like purpose comes in, not just my life purpose, but when we started incorporating purpose centered design into our projects, I started asking clients their 10-year goals, their 5-year goals, what's their 1-year goal, and then understanding how can their space be designed to achieve their goals. Um, I'll give you an example where there was a family home we were designing, and they have sons, right? Who, as the dad who's an athlete, he wanted his sons to also have that kind of upbringing, a very athletic upbringing. So instead of just designing bedrooms for the children, right, we really designed spaces that they could be physically active, that the dad could coach them, that the dad could be he could really be a partner in their activities all the time. So I think that really played a factor, which is like, I want my kids to be this. So okay, how can we design a space for you to do that? And he goes, I also want my kids, um, when they're in these sports teams. I mean, these are babies. We're talking about babies, right? So, but I want them when they're in their sports teams, for them when they come here, that they grow up the way I did, and that they can all um, hang out here, and this be like their locker room, extension of their locker room, and all of this. So we took that idea and rethought how to design a space for them, that family. Another example would be, let's see, even for me, I'm renovating my place. And when I started doing that life design course, I said, one of the things I said to myself that I want to do, right, in the next three to 5 years, is I want to be actually more artistic, not creative, but more artistic, and go back to the roots from where I came from. And I realized, wait, I need to design a space for me to do this, right? So I had to put that in my plans. And then I realized I really want to um, be more mindful and have the practice of meditation. Then I realized, wait, I need to create spaces for me to be able to meditate, um, and also connect with nature. So when you start putting these goals and you realize, wait, your space can really support you and help you achieve the
Mhm.
goals and have a better life. because you're creating conditions now for success. It's basically like for you to exercise in the morning. Sometimes people, you have to leave your clothes out in the morning to be ready to go. It's sort of that same thing. If you set up the conditions that the space can do, it will help you achieve those things as well.
Yeah, that's super cool. I'm very excited. If I ever come back down to visit, I would like to see your meditation room when it's done.
Yes, yes, yes. I would love that too.
So, okay, well, we're kind of running short on time, and I really want to thank you for it's you're so busy that you made time for this conversation. So, thank you so much, and for sharing. But before we wrap up, I do have a few more questions left, and I'll just list them, and you can decide how you want to answer them. What inspires you? Um, inspires slash like what grounds you, what keeps you grounded. So you were saying like, gosh, you're so busy throughout the day and you're constantly still learning and you want to do more things. We only have 24 hours in a day, right? Everyone is equal with their time. So what keeps you grounded, to stay focused, and what inspires you to do the work you're doing. I also like to always ask my guests, what books or resources has really helped you along your path, whether it's like inspired you or kind of helped you figure out some of the confusions you were at, or, like you said earlier, maybe it was this coach that you encountered, that you would share with others. And then the last one is, what would you tell your younger self what you know now? Or if that's not how you want to answer it, it could also be like, what would you tell those who are listening or tuning into this episode right now and who really resonate with your story, or who really, love what you're doing and the work you're projecting into the world? Um, your 2 cent, your 2 cents of wisdom, Denise's 2 cents of wisdom. Or it could also be something you tell your staff, to like kind of rah inspire them on the importance of what DDC is
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'll start with what inspires me. I'm inspired to be a better leader. And my team inspires me because I feel that they've given me so much. And I think by me being a better leader and building a better business, um, eventually it will become theirs because I don't have any children. And I feel that it's something that they can take on and grow, with the right foundation. So, being a better leader for my team is what inspires me,
Mm.
um, to do the work that I'm doing on an everyday level, like beautiful things and things that are happening. I just love looking at design, always. I think, um, I'm always just looking at new for inspiration. So that keeps me going as well. What grounds me? This one actually I learned from my coach. This, Eileen, my business, but also like, personal coach. I didn't realize how important habits were, right? And, creating those daily habits that, can just be practiced to build to a bigger goal have really grounded me. So the meditation practice, even this, learning practice. So whether it's learning, Spanish that I was telling you, and then also learning how to be a better tennis player. So I make time for that, and then exercise. So, but the habits for me, that's really was an eye opener for me. Um, and has helped ground me and make me feel that I can, take on a day and take on the month and the year and all sorts of things. And then book. This one is interesting. Okay, so, actually, what got me started and got me really motivated, to think in this mindset of an entrepreneur is I read the Simon, Sinek book, right? Finding Your Why. So that was an aha moment. I'm sure many people have also, had aha moments with him. And then obviously watching his very famous TED talk, of his circle, right? That golden circle that he had. So that was, yeah, that was superb for me. And then I read another book called The Power of Moment. Um, so that also really struck a chord with me because it wasn't about design, but it was really talking about how moments can have so much impact
Mm.
on people and create tipping points and create businesses. And I realize that's what we're doing. So actually, our hashtag is designing defining moments. So
Mm.
that also had resonated with me, at least in the past 2 years. Then my younger self, what did I tell my younger self? I would tell my younger self to design your life, right? And it you can do it in a way that has a lot of flexibility, but um, yeah, designing it to reach big and small goals. I think that's what I would tell my younger self.
Mm. I love that. That's so great. It's not, I think that's even like applicable to people today. Like, just, I mean, what I mean by that is like within even our age group, like, or just, anyone who kind of is out in the world and trying to figure out their career. Or I feel like lately I've been encountering a lot of people who, either got laid off because they worked in the tech industry. There's a
Yeah,
huge, we're in 2023 right now, and we're just in the first quarter of 2023, and many of the Silicon Valley peeps are getting laid off, and it's almost kind of like they're like, oh, what do I do with myself? Like, what do I want to do? Right. So I think this telling your, design your life. Like, I think that, and then that goes back into what we were talking about earlier too, about, well, who am I and what do I want? Right. So I think that's why everyone's headed into this direction of just like self-discovery and spiritual path and awakening and really trying to understand where we are in society, like as in what our purpose is and what we would like to contribute, right, while we're here in this lifetime.
exactly.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much, Denise. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to add on to our conversation, but I will put all the resources you pointed out in our conversation and in the links below the episode. And, people can follow your social media and find your website, get in contact with you if they're interested in hiring DDC for a project, whether it's in Philippines or abroad. And I'm really excited to see what you guys are going to do going forward.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to say something also to you, Jen. I think, thank you for inviting me, but also, keep connecting, keep growing, and you have that learning mindset too. And I think it brings you to all sorts of places and gives us the opportunity to meet other people through you as well. So I think you're doing an amazing job using your superpower.
Thank you so much. Well, I wish you a wonderful weekend ahead, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you. That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired, and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.